Alright, howdy boyos. Welcome back to more World of Warships. As some of you may have already seen, we'll be playing the German Tier 8 battleship, the Bismarck, in today's video. Now, Sabaton, in one of their songs, names the Bismarck as the King of the Ocean, a beast made of steel. Funnily enough, I decided to want to back this up with some factual statements. Turns out the Bismarck is one of the most played ships across all of the World of Warships servers, with over 16.5 million battles played on the EU server, which is more than a 3 million battle lead to the number 2, which is insane. However, before we jump into the heat of battle and try to prove this statement that Sabaton made about the Bismarck, I would quickly like to thank the World of Warships team for sponsoring this video. With the link in the description, you can play World of Warships for free, and with the code BOOM, you get access to 2 warships right off the bat, 7 premium days, 200 doubloons, 2.5 million credits, and other in-game content for new account creations. With that being said, let's jump into battle and see how she performs. Alright, so in this battle I am playing with 2 of my World of Warships buddies. One of them is in another Bismarck, and then my other friend is playing the Japanese Tier 8 carrier, the Kaga, which means we'll have quite a good amount of spotting on whatever side of the map we'll be going. Now the downside is what just popped up on screen is the cyclone warning. The cyclone is a random event that can happen basically any game, and what it does after the countdown of about 5 minutes, your visibility is going to go down to at best 8 kilometers, and 8 kilometers isn't a lot. This gives a lot of DDs, as in destroyers, a great advantage. Now, luckily for us, there was only 1 destroyer per team, and their destroyer wasn't necessarily harassing us very badly, although our destroyer immediately basically gets taken out by an enemy CV. The Bismarck is armed with 4 double 380mm or 38cm turrets, which gives it a pretty decent broadside of 8 rifles. However, compared this to some other ships at Tier 8, the 380mm are actually not the biggest guns. For example, some of the American ships have 406mm guns, which means the Bismarck does have a little bit of competition there. Where the Bismarck shines versus other battleships, in my opinion, is its performance close range. These guns still hurt a lot, they reload a little faster than other guns of higher calibers, and I have built my Bismarck, as well as my friend, to be super secondary focused, which means that my secondary battery, all the small guns, not the 380mm, but the smaller guns on the side, are going to be ranged up to 11.5 kilometers. And with a bunch of upgrades to the accuracy and its dispersion, this actually makes for a pretty decent damage doing machine. Now, in a previous patch, it actually upgraded it to 11.5 kilometers. It only used to be about 10.5 kilometers, so pretty decent buff. Adding on to that the Bismarck also has a decent hydro at 5 kilometers, which allows you to spot enemy ships, and torpedoes means you have a pretty decent pushing power ship, which is exactly what my friend and I here in the Bismarck were trying to do. I just took some nasty damage from, I believe, the enemy North Carolina, which was a little unnecessary. I have a ton of battles in the Tirpitz, but the Tirpitz and the Bismarck are actually quite similar. The main difference is the Tirpitz gets a set of torpedoes on each side of the ship, but it loses the hydra the Bismarck has. But I believe outside of that, the main guns and the secondary battery between those 2 ships are basically identical. This was, however, my first time in a Bismarck, and I gotta say, there is something really special about taking out this ship that has such a mystical thing behind it. People always really talk up the Bismarck. Hell, it's in that Sabaton song that I mentioned in the intro. It has something that people really look for, and that's why I think it has the most battles on most servers, definitely on the European server by far. So we're engaging this Miyoko and New Orleans. I do get a nice broadside volley on the Miyoko, but as I'm trying to turn away, because I realize that it's just my friend and I here, we're basically the closest ships to the enemy. As I turn out from Miyoko, I do actually take a good chunk of damage back from him. So we're engaging the Bayern with our main guns and our secondaries, as well as my friend in the other Bismarck, so we are really hammering the ships on this side. As you can see though, I've lost quite a substantial amount of health, and I'm trying to sort of get out of dodge just for a quick second, allowing my ship to repair and heal over time as I'm trying to use my healing abilities. Some torpedoes come in from a destroyer, which you can see has been spotted on the F1 spot, Devastate. However, his torpedoes luckily miss, and the Cleveland behind me manages to knock out that enemy Bayern battleship. Our health isn't doing too bad. We have used our second heal, and as I say that, I take a huge chunk of damage from the enemy Bismarck. I decided to throw on my hydro in case the enemy destroyer tries to torp us again. At least we'll have an early warning. This time, we do have the pushing power of our team, though they are slowly kind of in the back. They are following up on us. There comes enemy DD. I immediately mark him for my secondaries to be engaged. Our Bismarck friend is pushing up, and I'm like, you know what, I can't let him go down without my support. So I decided to turn back in again as I'm also capturing the Alpha objective. You can see half of my team on this side is actually kind of running away or cowering or not really actively engaged in the battle, but we have to push this side or we're not going to win the battle. Because on the other side of the map, as you can see, near the Delta point, our team is heavily outnumbered, like 1-3, and as I say that, he gets knocked out. The Bismarck and the Italian, the Tier 7 battleship that I'm not even going to try to pronounce, I fire at the Bismarck thinking I'd let him correctly, but as I fire, they ram each other, slowing the Bismarck down enough and not allowing me to get those shots in. I do capture Alpha, which is important for the team because no one was really capturing anything. My friend at the Bismarck uses his secondary battery to knock out the enemy destroyer. I do spot his torpedoes with my hydro, but now we don't have to worry about incoming torpedoes anymore. So again, the ship I cannot even try to pronounce, the Italian Tier 7 battleship, comes around the corner, relatively low health from the engagement he's in, and he's full broadside to my 8 300mm guns, knock him out with a Citadel. Again, trying to turn away because I'm using another heal, and my health isn't looking too good. We've lost 50% of my health. I have done about 60,000 damage. Some shots from the North Carolina there do not connect, thank God, and we are now in a decent position. We are 2 kills ahead on the board. As you can see, we've lost 3. They've lost 5 ships. And on this side of the map, it's just a New Orleans, a damaged Bismarck, and that North Carolina on the Charlie Point. They, however, do have another North Carolina, which we will come across later, and a bunch of their ships over on Delta. Alright, so there's a little bit of a lull in the battle right here as my friends and my own secondary batteries do engage the enemy Bismarck. I'm trying to get a firing solution on this enemy New Orleans, and I realize he's in kind of a bad spot for me to really waste a salvo, so I then decide to do engage the Bismarck. So between my friend in the Bismarck, my friend in the carrier, and myself, we are really giving this guy a pretty bad day here, and he's getting beat up pretty bad between the 3 of us, taking a good chunk of his damage there as he gets finished off by the torpedoes from my friend's carrier. Now, the Cyclone has just reached its maximum potential at the 8-kilometer spotting range, which means we have to be physically within 8 kilometers of an enemy ship to actually spot them. They might get spotted on the map, which you'll see here in a second, as is my carrier friend is just spotting the New Orleans, but he's not actually spotted in the game. So we kind of have to randomly guess here, basing his position off of the minimap, which is pretty damn hard, especially for a ship like the New Orleans that is pretty maneuverable compared to, let's say, a heavier ship like another enemy Bismarck or the North Carolina. So a little bit further in the battle, my friend in the Bismarck, who took the short turn around the island, is currently facing not just the enemy North Carolina battleship, as you can see on the map, but also the enemy Atlanta. Now, the main thing about the Atlanta here, what he was afraid of wasn't necessarily the guns, but the Atlanta does have some last stand torpedoes that people really sometimes seem to forget about. Now we have to push this flank. There are quite a few ships left, as you can see. It's technically a 3 versus 4 with the 2 Carolinas, an Atlanta, and a New Orleans there on our flank. So I finally spot the enemy North Carolina, get a mediocre salvo there with 5 out of my 6 hits ricocheting, and our Surrey there is sort of committing Sudoku. He does get torpedoes off, thank God, finishes off the North Carolina as my secondaries on both sides are now firing. The Atlanta spotted, I pop my Hydro because I do not want him to get too close and actually get me with his torpedoes. My secondaries set a fire on the enemy New Orleans, which is already at low health, which will turn out very good for us here in a second as we launch a devastating salvo on the Atlanta, hitting him twice in the Citadel, doing a devastating strike, meaning he got destroyed for more than 50% of his health there with that volley, leaving us now in actually a 3v2 situation with the Monarch coming in clutch from the north, trying to capture C, as well as obviously providing fire support on the Carolina, the second one, as our secondaries set more fires and damage and destroy the enemy New Orleans over time. And this is where I started getting really sweaty and made a few mistakes. First of all, really should have probably held my fire there. Our salvo of 4 shots only hit once, and I only did about 1,000 damage. I realized quickly that my friends tell me the Monarch, the friendly Monarch to our north, is actually pretty damaged and is in the process of being taken out by the enemy carrier. So it's really just down to the Boise here, the friendly Boise to my south, and myself. Get a decent damage roll there, and I realize I cannot show this guy my broadside. If I do show him my broadside, he would destroy me like my friend in the Bismarck just got destroyed in front of me. So I do take quite a large chunk of damage there, but it's not devastatingly enough for me to get finished. Keep in mind here, I'm sweating pretty hard. I managed to do about 15 or 16,000 damage there, but it's not enough. And I have to realize here, as he does too, that we're probably both out of heals. My repair party is almost off cooldown. I am very afraid of him setting me on fire, but luckily my buddy in the Boise manages, with my assistance, to knock him out, meaning that one is now toast, leaving my friend in the Kaga, the Boise, and myself here, though on very low health, against the enemy Prince Eugen and the enemy carrier. And this is where stuff really goes south for us because of the cyclone. My friend in the carrier is not able to accurately spot the enemy Prince Eugen, and he knows what he needs to do. A, he needs to capture A and deny us any points, and obviously give his team more points. And B, if he can find and kill the carrier, their enemy carrier can easily deal with the Boise and myself, especially considering I'm on super low health. So what I do, I tell the Boise, look buddy, you have more health than I do. I really need you to try and capture C, which luckily enough he does try to attempt, as I myself try to put myself into a position where I can stop the capture of A and hopefully save my buddy in the carrier. So a little bit of a fast forward here again as we try and use the map spotting that my friend in the carrier is doing to get shots on the Eugen, who is, by the way, almost directly facing me, and I'm not able to get a connecting hit. The enemy carrier realizes the danger that the Eugen's in if I can get on his flank, and also sees my very low health as my AA is engaging his planes. He loses a couple of them. He does get a rocket strike, doesn't finish me off, which means I'm very lucky, and the Prince Eugen finally comes into sight. More so because the cyclone, as you can see, is finally fading in the last minutes of the game. So now I have to get the Eugen destroyed, which saves us some points, and hopefully then try and go and capture points while not getting blown up by the carrier, and hoping our carrier and Boise can knock out the enemy carrier. And this is where I get a very unlucky volley. I feel like I did everything right. I only get 2 over penetrations, 4 ricochets. The Eugen sees me and realizes what he has to do, as my carrier get a huge amount of torpedo hits on the Eugen. I do get the high caliber award. It's not going to make a difference because as the Eugen is on just 900 health, he gets me with his last salvo, as my friend in the carrier manages to knock out the Eugen, but it's not going to be enough As you can see, the points on the top of the screen are very high, and what happens is because of the point system, the enemy manages to win this battle, which I think is pretty interesting and funny if you consider what happened to the Bismarck. Granted, I didn't get finished off by the enemy torpedo bombers, which would have been interesting, but it was pretty close, and the enemy carrier managed to win the game for them in the end. I hope you guys enjoyed this World of Warships video. If you want to play some more Warships for yourself, check the link in the description. Use that code BOOM. Once again, thank you for Wargaming for sponsoring this video, and I'd love to see you guys in the next one. Cheers!